2021 gauntlet rages on. We are quickly approaching the end of it, though. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just have a couple of films left that we have to get through, and one of them, of course, is the return of one of the most influential films of the last century. I'm speaking, of course, about The Matrix. Let's give a little context here before we jump right in. The Matrix is one of those movies that I think the best way I could describe it, or my relationship to it, is that I respect it. I respect the hell out of The Matrix. There is a lot of things The Matrix did that were revolutionary for their time. And I'm not talking about the bullet time and the special effects, which, yes, are important. But in terms of filmmaking, and in terms of storytelling, there is a lot that this film did. There is a lot that this film influenced. There is a lot that this film changed. And you can't ignore a milestone like that. You can't write it off. It's an incredibly important film. If you want the full rundown, I highly, highly recommend go check out Movie Bob's episode of Really That Good on The Matrix, and he goes into the influence that this film has in terms of philosophy, in terms of screenwriting, in terms of casting. There's just so much that this movie did, and you know, you've got to take your hat off to it. You've got to take your hat off to it and applaud it, especially as it seems that it's gained more notoriety in recent years, and certain aspects of film criticism regarding it have become much more prominent. Let's just jump right in and talk about it. The concept of the Matrix as a transgender narrative. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. When I first saw The Matrix, that concept never crossed my mind. Never did it cross my mind. And yet, as I've heard people talk about it, and I've heard the parallels being drawn, and of course now knowing that its filmmakers are two trans women, it makes perfect sense. It fits. And that just gives it a whole new dimension, which is something I always feel that good art should do. Good art, and I do believe film is art. I truly believe that. Good art should change as you view it. The art itself is stationary, but the way we interpret it changes, and a good piece of art can adapt to changing times, or new information about the making of it comes out and it gives you a whole new interpretation. I think that's wonderful. I make the same comparison to Citizen Kane. I say why Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time is because it is a moving piece of artwork, and you can watch it a million times and get something new out of it every time. And I think The Matrix walked that very, very fine line. Because, again, one of the things I truly love about The Matrix, from a script character analysis point of view, is that the creators have never come out and said, this is the correct interpretation. It's written in such a way, the ideas are presented in such a way that, yes, you can definitely get a transgender narrative out of it, without a doubt, but you can get hundreds of other narratives out of it as well. You know, a different person with different backgrounds and different, ideologies and different thought processes can all watch the same movie and find a different meaning in it. And that's very, very difficult to do, and a meaning that has only grown over time. That is, you cannot appreciate how hard that is from a screenwriting, playwriting standpoint. To direct something that is, in every sense of the word, a product of its time, but also timeless. That's hard to do. So I heap all this praise on The Matrix. I heap all of this praise and all of this goodwill onto the original film to give context when I say that I respect The Matrix. I just never really liked The Matrix. Sorry. I know that it was one of those films that if you were a college kid in the late 90s when this came out, you were kind of required to like, kind of like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But in both cases, I saw it and went, all right. I don't hate it. I think that's important to stress. I don't hate it. I recognize, as I've just illustrated, all of its good points. I recognize why it is an important film, and I recognize the good things that were done in it. But for me, it just never really clicked. Again, just like Lord of the Rings, I respect the hell out of the Lord of the Rings. I respect the bloody hell out of them. But if you're asking me, do I like them? Nope, I'm bored to tears by them. And I just never really liked The Matrix. You know, again, I'm sorry. And its own sequels did not help its case. I always felt The Matrix, while important, it was also a very pompous film. It was marinating in its own brilliance and its own intelligence, and was very proud to let you know how smart it was. And then the sequels doubled down on that by really pouring it on. Those movies are so fucking pompous. They're so pompous they forgot to be entertaining. So, I'm not a fan of The Matrix. I bring this up because I'm not a fan of it, but I respect it. I need to stress that. Because when I heard they were doing this film, I was not excited because I'm not into it. It's not my thing. I also wasn't really sure why we were doing it. Why the story ended. And as much as I just badmouthed the sequels, I have to say I appreciated how they ended with our two main heroes, Trinity and Neo, both dying, and the war between between humans and machine ending in basically a draw, and both sides saying, okay, live and let live. We'll let people out of the Matrix if they want out, but we're going to keep the ones that want to stay so we can still have power. So that's not a way we kind of expected a movie like that to end. So it ended, and ended in a fairly, in an interesting way. And I felt like the story was told. So what are we doing coming back here for a fourth? And I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. One of the reasons I wanted to put this on the list of ones to see is because if we came back and we had something interesting to say, and we recaptured kind of that lightning in a bottle that the original Matrix had, where you had something interesting to say, but you had it in you put it in a fun package so it was fun to watch, and you still got this extra message. Okay, then let's go see what the new Matrix has to say. And when all is said and done, I feel like what the new Matrix has to say is, wasn't The Matrix a great movie? That's kind of it. Now, I want to stress this before I get into my reasoning. I understand, as I have just illustrated, that in terms of Matrix movies, the Matrix films, I think, are films that require multiple viewings. They require multiple viewings in order to understand everything that's going on. So, in that, with that being the case, I understand that there is an inherent flaw with my reviewing format. Because, again, I am giving you my gut reaction. This is a few hours removed. I watched it last night, went to bed, got up, and now I'm doing the review. So, I'm a few hours removed from it. So, I can only review the film that is right in front of me and my initial reactions to it. It's very possible that if I were to watch this movie multiple times, then I'd get more out of it. There'd be more to see. The problem is there's nothing in this movie that makes me want to watch it a second time. That was the genius of the original Matrix. The original Matrix was not about the bullet time, and the big special effects, and, these ultra awesome wire work kung fu fight scenes, highly choreographed, battle scenes. That's what got your butt into the theater. That's what made you want to come see it, and then it blindsided you by saying, haha, this movie is actually about philosophy and identity and all of this. It actually has meaning. It's not just a popcorn film. You can eat your popcorn and like it, but that's not what it's actually about. It's the same philosophy, though, done a million times better than Zack Snyder's film Sucker Punch, which used the heavy fetishization of women to get people into the theater, and then literally sucker punch them with the haha, this movie is basically calling all you people who came to see the girls in skimpy outfits pigs to your faces. Again, The Matrix did it a million times better, but it's that same philosophy. The problem here is there's nothing that makes me want to go watch this movie again. The fight scenes are bland, they are dull, they're lifeless. There's all of that spark that the originals had, and I'll include the sequels in this, because the sequels, as bad as they were and as pompous as they were, still delivered on the visual eye candy. They did some really innovative things. This one, and I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's because we have seen the influence of The Matrix and its fight scenes done in so many other movies ever since, that now coming back to the original feels like it's behind the times. I know that's a contradiction in terms, but I don't know. I wonder very strongly. This was directed by Lila Wachowski, so only one of them directed this film. So it makes me wonder if some of that visual flair, some of that spark wasn't Lily Wachowski's doing, and maybe she had the eye for that, while Lana Wachowski had more of the eye for the closed-in scenes and the Zion scenes and things like that. It makes me wonder if that's the danger of losing a combined vision. Whatever it is, it's a flat, uninteresting film to look at. It's they've gotten rid of that kind of sickly green filter that they used to put over everything that was in the Matrix world. Again, it was very subtle in the first film, and then the two other films, it feels like they just poured green paint over the negative, back when we used film negative, which I don't think this film did. So, they've retired that, and it seems like a lot of brown. The big fight scenes are all very brown, very unappealing. So the fight scene, so what gets you into the theater to watch the movie is not rewatchable, in my opinion. So if that's not good, what about the rest of it? Well, as I've mentioned, it's possible that upon multiple viewings I'd get more out of it. But I feel like this film is almost a victim of its own success, or a victim of its predecessor's own success, because we went to The Matrix and we're introduced to all these ideas. And as I've mentioned, it's only grown since the film originally came out. There is so much written and so much talked about, excuse me, the inner workings of the original Matrix, that you go to a Matrix movie now and you feel like you have to watch it on the edge of your seat, not because it's thrilling, because you want to hear every word and you want to understand everything and you want to get everything right away. This is the problem that the sequels had, is they really poured that on. They really doubled down on the philosophy and the double talk and all of this, and kind of lost the thread that, again, the benefit of The Matrix is in its rewatch value. And that it's something you're supposed to get over time and over multiple viewings, not over, one viewing all at once. So I'm sitting there watching this movie, listening for anything, again, I'm thinking in terms of queer theory, I'm thinking in terms of social economic theory, I'm thinking in terms of identity theory, I'm trying to, listen for all of this stuff, and I'm not getting anything. What I'm getting, again, is that, boy howdy, isn't The Matrix a great movie. Yeah, it feels like the majority of this film, especially the first half of it, like almost the first full hour, is just literally retreading The Matrix. It is the worst kind of fan service. Now, we've seen a lot of fan service films this year. Ghostbusters Afterlife, the Spider-Man film. A lot of fan service, a lot of tipping the hat, but whereas Ghostbusters and Spider-Man No Way Home were able to do this with a wink and a nod and an acknowledgement of famous lines or famous moments, this film feels compelled to completely redo the opening of the first movie, like almost shot for shot. And what is really irritating about it is that they are pompous enough. This film is egotistical enough to not even try to hide that that's exactly what they're doing. At least with The Force Awakens, they tried to hide it under this literary thing of it's a tome poem and one stanza echoes the other and all of that. So yes, the beats are the same, but the details are different. They at least tried to hide it under some, vague filmmaking, mumbo jumbo. This movie says, no, fuck that. We're important enough. We're just going to let you know that's exactly what we're doing. We are constantly going to intercut clips of the original movie as a scene is happening so that this is a mirror of that. Moreover, there are certain times where they are literally projecting the original film over top of the scene that is happening. The scene is happening and the original scene is playing in the background to fully let you know this is what's happening right now. I said this with my, was it Red Dawn, whatever the fuck that, Red Notice, Burn Notice, the Rock movie. They are hanging so many goddamn lampshades on everything, and that the house is just lampshades, and the home designers are coming in and going, oh my God, why so many lampshades? Yeah, it's obnoxious the way they do it. And I'm sure there's some deep, they believe there's some deeper meaning. And how do I know that? Because they draw attention to it. Not only are they hanging lampshades on it, they are hanging lampshades on the lampshades. I enjoyed the first Scream movie. I really did. And I'm curious to see the new one. Not excited, but curious. But one thing that Scream did, and it was revolutionary at the time, and if we knew what it was, the Pandora's box it was going to open, I just wish we could stop it. This calling attention to everything happening. I don't know. I think you can blame part of it on Scream, and you can blame part of it on, us, on YouTubers and CinemaSins and all of these things that have spent the last 20 years pointing out all of these things in movies that now the movies feel like they have to comment on it in the movie. That's the only reason they make Disney live action remakes, is to, address the so-called problems that the movie had. There is a whole, so context. In this new Matrix, so Neo and Trinity are alive by means. And in this new Matrix, Neo is convinced that he is a game designer that designed 3 ultra-popular, world-changing video games called the Matrix Trilogy. Basically the Matrix movies, just video games instead of, films. And the bloated, evil corporation he works for is demanding he do a sequel, even though he doesn't want to. And there is an entire extended montage in universe meant to kind of show his frustration with the the similarity of every day, the mundanity of everyday life, and all of this, that, and the other thing. But there's this extended montage where he's in there with his, his partners, and they're discussing, the new Matrix and what made the original Matrix great, and, reboot, rehash, sequel. We've got to do it all. We're gonna be different. We got to say something with this movie. So it is aware of what it's doing, and it wants you to know that it's aware of it. And I know what they're trying to do. I get what they are attempting to do with that, but it just comes off as, you don't need to hang a lampshade on it. You don't need to draw our attention to it. You don't need to make it part of the dialogue like Jamie Kennedy from Scream laying out the rules of a horror movie. You don't need to tell us this is a reboot, remake, resequeling, whatever. We know. Believe us. We are aware. This is not news. And it would be, again, you'd forgive all that if it did have anything to say, but I can't. In this one viewing, I cannot deter anything that it really has to say that it didn't already say in the original Matrix. Again, it's a shot-for-shot remake. So, at least upon initial viewing, everything that this film has to say, or might be trying to say, and I was very excited. The reason I wanted to see this movie is with this new insight into the it being a trans narrative. I was very interested to see this and see if that lined up with this new one, and go, okay, okay. Now that the little Chelseas have kind of lived with that reality, and that reality is out, and everybody's aware of it, I wonder what this new movie is going to be like. And I don't see anything in there that wasn't a mirror image of exactly what was done in the original. Whereas in the original, Keanu Reeves' character has the, my name is Neo, accepting his true identity, throwing off the imposed identity of society, that big moment. This time they do it with Trinity. Exact same moment, just different character. So, the only thing I can say in terms of a trans narrative that I did see that was interesting is the new character who kind of takes the role of Morpheus, which is interesting, but anyway, takes the role of Morpheus. The new character, Bug. I noticed that they are a much more androgynous character than in previous films. And I also believe, and this is something that would be interesting to see a multiple viewing of this just to see if I'm right, I don't believe they ever refer to this character by any possessive pronoun. I don't believe they ever call them she or he. They call them Captain or Bug. So I don't believe there is any pronouns connected to this character. I think. I could have missed something, but I truly think that they went through the whole film and did not give them a pronoun. I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering, I think that might have been true of the entire film. I don't think there's ever a pronoun used. I could be wrong about this, but I'm trying to think of when they were talking about Trinity, if they said she or if they said Trinity. And if that's the case, and if there are no pronouns in the movie, okay, that's something cool. That's neat. And I like that they didn't do it for Bug. I thought that is a neat touch. So, kudos. I like that. That was a really smart choice. But other than that, again, I did not see anything in here that did not already happen. It doesn't feel like it adds anything new, at least upon first viewing. I got to keep prefacing that, because people who are big fans of this franchise are going to go and rewatch this film. They are going to make new observations, and when they do, I'll be very interested in hearing them and, seeing the things that I didn't see. But from my perspective, it didn't feel like anything was done or accomplished. And I feel like there was a perfect opportunity for it. This is too on the nose for this franchise, but let me give you my idea. So one of the things that they do with this movie is older characters are brought back, but with new actors playing them. We have a new Morpheus, who is not supposed to be the Lawrence Fishburne character. He is a computer program designed by Neo to do something. Motivations are very unclear in this. So he's kind of a cross between Morpheus's personality and Agent Smith's personality. So you have a new Morpheus. Great, and decent performance, though he spends most of his time dressing like the Joker. But I digress. You have a new Agent Smith. His personality now imparted into a new body. So you have this actor just doing a very bad Hugo Weaving impression the entire film. So we've established that this is what we can do in the Matrix universe. So here's my question. Here's my idea, and again, on the nose, so don't be afraid to come up with a better one for me. If we accept the Matrix as a trans narrative, let's say that is the correct interpretation, then what if, instead of Neo and Trinity being revived in their original bodies, which just raises a ton of questions, and in my opinion kind of diminishes the sacrifice of the original trilogy, it really robs it of its power. What little power that movie had, it robs of it. So what if instead of doing that, bing, what if doing that, Neo and Trinity's identities were downloaded after their deaths? They have the jacks in the back of their necks, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that if you can put information in, you can take information out. So what if their personalities were downloaded and put into new bodies? So now you could be obvious about it and do a, Neo in a male's body and Trinity in a female's body. Or I'm sorry, reverse it, I'm sorry. That was completely wrong. You could do Neo in a female body and Trinity in a male body. That's very on the nose. Or you don't even have to, switch the genders up. Just, I am one person, but I'm in the body of another. And now I have to reconcile those two personalities to become a new being. So I'm not saying like the body is a blank disc. The body has its own personality and has its own mind, but Neo's mind is now layered on top of it. So there are two identities. And those two identities have to come together and reconcile and form a new being. There you go. That is within the rules that the film sets up. It is in keeping with the trans narrative. If we accept that as the correct interpretation, but if you go that route, it's also open-ended enough that you can still do what the Matrix did best and interpret many different outcomes of that. And I feel like it would have been the simplest thing in the world to do, and they didn't do it. You still could have had Keanu Reeves back and Trinity back and have them, serve as those extra voices, but I feel like we could have done a lot more with the identity theme and, evolution themes and things of that nature if we had gone that route. And I feel like the route that they went, it's a boring route and it's a pointless route. It's a route we've been down, so why are we driving it again? Again, I must stress that there are people who are going to rewatch this movie and they're going to get a lot more out of it. Just in talking about it, for instance, I mentioned the mirror image of scenes and the mirror image of characters. Well, mirror images are a big visual cue in this. Now, instead of using phones to get out, they find a mirror and very Alice in Wonderland pass through it. So mirror images are a theme here, clearly. Big year for mirrors in movies and reflections. But for me, it's very flat, and there's nothing in it that makes me want to go back and rewatch it, aside from the performance of Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris is really good in this, and we've got to get him into a Marvel movie. He needs to play a Marvel villain very soon, in my opinion. I don't know who he'd play. You know, who do you think Neil Patrick Harris could play in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because I'd love to see him in it. But overall, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. So I've been going around in circles, literally driving around in circles, trying to work out my thoughts on this movie, and I think I've beaten it to the point I can't beat it anymore. That sounds dirty. So let's just get to it. So the final grade for Matrix Resurrections, I'm sorry people, I gotta go another C-. It gains points for the bug thing and the inclusion of Neil Patrick Harris. It loses a lot for feeling like it's just, you know, coasting on its reputation and being egotistical enough to draw our attention to that. But I also want to give it credit and say that I acknowledge there may be more going on here than I am aware of after one viewing. So, if in fact that is the case and new information comes to light that makes me view the film in a different way, great. But right now, I'm sorry, I've got to stick with my gut, and I got to go C- on it. Sorry, folks. If it's your thing, then that's great. If you get more information out of it than I did, that's great. That's wonderful. It's a very neoclassic form of filmmaking. Ha ha ha! Neoclassic. Ah ha 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 ha! I see what you did there, Lila. I see what you did. Neoclassic. I see what you did. So yeah, but if you get something out of it, great. Me, not much. All right, so again, the gauntlet is nearing its conclusion, and hopefully we will wrap it up this weekend, and we can finally organize all these films, pick out the best, and put a nice bow on this year. But before we do that, we're gonna have to get in our DeLoreans and our TARDISes and our time machine hot tubs and take a little skip back, twist the time turner, go back 1 year, because I feel like we need some closure. So before we do that, before we wrap up 2021, we need to go back and revisit 2020 one last time. And we'll do more of that when next we meet. So thank you for watching, and keep warm, keep safe, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.